It looks like 6 o'clock on our time here in Hanover at the beginning of the Joe Davis County Development and Planning Committee today, Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Angie to take the roll call, please.
Dittmer,
Yes.
Diane Gallagher,
Aye.
Lynn Gallagher,
Here.
Schultz,
Present.
Hireman, Lang,
Present.
Trost. You have a quorum.
In your packet are the minutes from the March 24th, 2026 meeting. They had a chance to review them. If there's any questions, things you'd like to.
I'll second.
It's been moved by John Schultz and seconded by John Lang to approve the minutes of March 24th. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Citizen comments. Right now, do we have anybody online? Because we don't have anybody here in the room, but this is an opportunity.
Diane, I think I'm showing up as iPhone. This is Diane Allendorf.
Thank you, Diane. So we have Diane and Mike Holt and I don't know the other 815 number. Who is it? Oh, okay. So here's a chance for either one. If you have a citizen comment, we'll entertain that right now. Hearing none, we'll move on to unfinished business. Our strategic goals are in your packet. We've looked at those previously. As it is right now, the revising the zoning ordinance to simplify is in high gear, right, Bill? Yes. And so that's very active. The encourage commercial and industrial development, that's reviewing and things moving on with we'll hear more of that from David. Encourage cooperative planning efforts with the municipalities, and that's another thing that's going on with the economic development efforts. And is there anything that you feel we should pay particular attention to? I know as part of our overall goals, we all want to see our population increase and our young people be able to stay or move here and live here, stay in our communities. Moving on from the goals, we'll go on to new business. And our new business number 1 is a discussion and possible action regarding market impacts on the assessed value of properties with special use permits for rental activity. This is really fitting because it's one of those topics that's kind of the development area and it's kind of finance area. So you might see that the finance committee is also speaking on that. And tonight we have Laura Edmonds with us to kind of walk us through the market analysis that she did for Guilford Township. And I suppose, Laura, that you chose that for a pretty easy reason, right?
Yeah, so this is just for informational purposes only. So Guilford Township encompasses the Galena territory, and thus major rentals are out there. So we decided to take a step back and we looked at the actual sales that took place in Guilford Township. And we separated out the properties that had guest accommodation licenses and a special use permit from those without. Once we separated the properties, especially pulling out the townhouses, it became pretty evident that the detached homes and 1-story frames or 2-story frames are selling anywhere between 10 and 20% higher. So what does that do? That actually, when we're not assessed at 1/3, it pushes our sales ratio down. And then everybody else has to make up for that.
Can you explain what the sales ratio is?
So it's your prior year assessed value divided by the selling price.
But the fair, so on the tax bill, sorry. So on the tax bill, it says fair market value is what you're saying versus the assessed value.
You take the prior year assessed value divided by what the person paid for it, and that gives you your sales ratio.
Oh, so if I bought my house 20 years ago, it would be a lot bigger ratio?
The sales rate would depend on the type of building you're assessing, right? That's what you're using that ratio to assess various properties based on what that house has in it. Using the sales ratio of that type of facility. Isn't that what essentially you do?
The state puts all valid sales into the bucket. They don't care if it's a commercial property, a one-story frame, a two-story frame, a condominium, whatever. They look at the sales, the median of the sales ratio of that, and they take the median. And we have to be at 33 1/3. So when we're not, let's say a house is assessed at 50,000. So you take that times 3 would be 150,000, right? Market value.
Yeah.
But if it's sold for 500,000, you take that 50,000 divided by 500,000 and whatever that comes out to. So we're supposed to be at 33.
Maybe explain how you use the sales ratio, because I think based on his question, sales ratio is really only the last, what, year, 2 years of sales. You're not going back and looking at sales from 10 years ago.
We use the prior 3 years of sales.
Okay.
Of all properties in the county.
Of all properties within that township or multi-township.
I'm looking at this reverse way. So like, if I'll use 300,000, you have a $300,000 house and you want, let's say that's that's what it's worth, the fair cash value, the fair market value, whatever you want to use. And you divide it by 3 to get the EAV minus $6,000 because of your home exemption. So the taxable rate is 94,000.
You're talking tax bill and I'm talking sales that the state looks at, and we have to be at a median of 33.
So, okay, so then who says that we have to be at a medium at 33? The state does.
The state statute.
And so if I haven't been assessed in 20 years and then I sell my house, it's gonna throw it off a little bit. I mean, not a little bit, a lot is what you're saying. It'll be like your 50,000, 500,000 would be, my sale ratio is at 10 and not 33.
Right. I mean, you're supposed to be reassessed every 4 years.
They're
Right.
talking about increasing the. Well, can we get up to the, I need to be in.
So, okay, so the sales ratio is that number. Okay, I think I understand that now.
So if we have all these sales that are less than 33 1/3,
Mhm.
and we have sales that are above 33 1/3, our median is not meeting the threshold. So that's when factors come in, and you have to apply factors on the property to bring it up to 33 1/3. You can't just cherry pick. I'm gonna put, a factor on one-story frame or two-story frame. We have to do it by classes.
And within a township
Right,
or a multi-township, if it's a multi-township district.
correct. All non-farm property.
I believe Mr. Lang had the benefit of having a ratio applied to his property a couple years ago and he wasn't real pleased about it. Right, John?
Yeah. So, okay, so if the, so you go back 3 years for this. So, if, I haven't been assessed in 3 years, all of a sudden I'll see a big jump in my taxes. If you, I don't want to use the wrong word, you catch it, or I mean, you update it. What, I mean, equalize it. Thank you.
So we don't equalize every 3 years unless we have to. The township assessor goes out every 4th year and looks at the prior 3 years of sales and reassess property.
They're supposed to.
Okay, so I give them a guideline at the beginning and I say, due to the prior 3 years of the sales ratio that I get, you have to raise X number of dollars. Otherwise, I'll be putting a factor on everybody. So that's the stage we're at right now. But that's not what we're really talking about here.
The sales ratio now.
Okay. So we just took what was happening in Guilford and we separated them out. You can see that the rental median prices, we had 52 sales, 1 story. They came in at 407,000, 2 stories, 429. You can see the medians that were taking place there, and then the non-rentals. Our medians are low, but now in the first quarter, when we did Guilford, now this is, I didn't separate anything out. I have a median of 36. So we're a little bit high, but it's better than being at 22. Because over the past 3 years, Guilford has had substantial factors, and then last year they were just reassessed.
So what are factors that can change the price?
It changes the value.
But what are factors? Like,
It's a multiplier or an equalization factor. So
where does it come from?
it comes from the sales. From the ratio.
If in your neighborhood, the houses are selling for much more, or percentage more than what you remembered from when you first bought your place, that means it's kind of like a rising tide, that you may not recognize your value, but it is considered more valuable to potential buyers.
So if my house is at a $22, whatever, is it use dollars or just 22? I don't know what you use.
Percent.
22% ratio, and everyone around me has been selling at 30%. When I get reassessed, they'll take mine from 22 to 30 as a factor to equalize it.
No, we put all of the sales in that district into a spreadsheet. And then we try to determine, is it the type of house that's selling more? Is it the age of the house? I mean, it's an opinion. So, clearly, 2025 house would probably sell much more than a 1970 house, unless that 1970 house has been gutted and redone, okay? So, then we have categories, maybe a 1970 to a 1990 house is valued at $100 per square foot. And then so on. So then that's how your revaluation takes place.
So the factors aren't the ratio, the factors are what you or the assessor think the house is worth just by sales in the last 2 or 3 years.
No,
Factor is something that has to be applied if the numbers don't come out to be 33% of what the sales ratio is for the last 3 years.
so like in finance meeting, when I give you the sales ratio study, here's what we're at for the 3 years, and it's, I don't know, it's 27, 28, and 30. The 3-year median of that is I don't know, 29.
Mhm.
So you take 0.3333 divided by 0.29, and that's your factor that I have to apply. And that's the value. Then I take that number times the value from the abstract, and that's the value that I need.
All right, so say that again. So you take, I got as far as you take 29.29 divided by 0.333, and then that number is the factor, and you apply that to the 0.29.
I apply that to your assessed value.
So if I was getting $100,000, you only apply what the difference in ratio is to change the fair market value. Is it assessed value or fair market value?
Assessed value.
Assessed value. And then, so then that raises, that's why the assessed value then goes up using that ratio.
The
Okay,
fact,
okay.
the equalization factor.
Got it.
Using your numbers of 29 and 33, the factor would be 1.14.
Got it.
So 14%.
What, It'd be so if you had $100,000 house, you just raise it to $114,000 house.
What's applied to land and
Well, I'm
buildings.
just using that
Yeah,
one.
yep.
If this was a straightforward, simple scientific system, there would be no reason for a board of review and there would never be any changes.
I just want to make sure that they all understood you when you said, when you go back and look at the 3 years of sales, and then you determine basically what the gap is, you're not telling them you need to find this value and add it to someone or something. You're just saying, you're basically evaluating the work that's been done, and then this is what the gap is. You know, if they find something that they didn't pick up or whatever, great. But at the end of the day, if they don't close that gap in the quad, you're gonna have to put on a factor.
Yeah, if they don't close it in the quad or even a non-quad, like they can go, you know, if they figure out that land is too low, they can add a factor to the land, or they can go in and revalue the land. If they don't do that, I'm gonna be doing it.
And so this all makes sense to me. So, and because you said use the word, it's an opinion, which that's what it is between you and the assessor. And then if I don't like that, that's when I have the right to protest and go through the steps, right? To come, okay, got it.
But that's also when we celebrate, when we get to the 1.0. Oh, we did, that's,
Yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, when that multiplier comes in at 1, we're all really, really happy about that, because that means that we're at 33 and 33 and a third
As a
But-
county.
at the county level, but a lot went into getting there.
oh, sure.
And that's what she's talking about here, is it takes a lot to get to the 33 and a third.
So anyway, back to, I guess, the slide. This was just to show how rental properties are making an impact when things are being sold. Is there anything we can do about it? Not particularly, but I just wanted you guys all to know that when people say, especially out the territory, all these people that have rental properties, they're boosting my value up. Well, yes and no. I mean, we can't price them differently. Everything has to be uniform. So I just wanted you all to realize that.
Laura, Mike has a question.
I mean, I'll wait, I have a question, but I'll wait till you have more.
No, I mean, it's on the,
So you mentioned that because the rentals, this is a meeting a couple times or whatever, the rentals are higher than the non-rentals, which is what the data here shows. That hurts the non-rentals. I don't understand that. Can you explain to me how that does that? Because I'm looking at a tax levy standpoint, and I'm sorry, and maybe this is a terrible example, but in 1993, River Ridge tried to pass a tax referendum and it failed. So they came back at half of that, which is a common tax, and it passed in 94. But in 93, 94, the general golf course went in, all those $1 million homes came into the River Ridge district. And by the year 2000, because all those new homes with higher values, the tax rate was lower than what it was beforehand. So I'm having a hard time, because I know that, and I don't know why I know that, but so if those values are higher, then they wouldn't everyone else's be a little lower? But that's not what you said in the meeting. So that's why someone needs to explain that to me.
Well, you're talking about tax extension. So you're talking about how once the assessments are done and is kind of rolled over to the clerk's office, they take all of the taxing bodies' requests for funding, apply it to the value that's been determined.
Right.
Higher the value, lower the rate.
Right.
But she has to get to that point through the assessment. And I think what she's trying to say, and stop me if I'm wrong here, when that sales ratio is off and you've got let's say two identical homes, but one has an SUP and the other one doesn't. And this special use permit. Yep. And so the one with the special use permit sells for higher, quite a bit higher
10%, 20%, sure.
than this one. And that happens across the board, in that, okay, well, now for the guy who has the regular house and the person who, just made essentially more money than this guy because, I mean, is the house going to be the same, or is it because there's an SUP, essentially, the opportunity for a business that was sold along with it, but you can't assess that. You can't assess the business. So now your ratio's off, and now she, as the assessor, has to figure out, how do we bring them back in line? If they'd all been essentially selling at the same level, then her sales ratio is going to come in at a more even keel. But because she's got this going on, then her ratio is messed up. So she's got to figure it out. So she talks to her assessor. She says, I've got this gap. If they can't close the gap, she has to apply a factor. She's applying a factor over the entire township, essentially, whether it be by class or whatever. That's hurting the guy over here who doesn't have an SUP, essentially, because, but it's quite honestly, it's hurting all of them.
Yeah.
It's hurting all of them, but it may be a little bit harder because at the end of the day, when the little guy over here that doesn't have the SUP, he knows that when he goes to sell his house, he's not going to get that higher amount because he doesn't have an SUP. So I think what Laura is trying to say is that we're not saying do away with SUPs, but if you didn't make the SUP transferable, so when I sell my property, it automatically goes with it, make it so they have to reapply, that essentially could help even out those sales.
I think that's awesome. So just make sure I got, so when you have this gap, the gap that you're talking about, and you apply the factor to it, does the factor only go to the lower ones that go up, or does it apply equally to everybody? So that's when you said it hurts everybody, it raises everyone. So the main negative that's hurting, so tell me if I'm saying this right or wrong. The reason that it's hurting the non ones is because their values are just, they're gonna be higher than what they should be anyway. Or is it just because of factor? You know what I'm saying? If this whole area, let's say it's half SUPs and half not, but these are selling for higher. These are gonna sell for a little higher too, so I'll pay more taxes on that. That you're not saying that. Cause
So
that does hurt me because I pay a little more, but at the same time, my house is worth
it's
more.
selling higher and this bunch is selling lower.
Right,
And the revaluation, I've got to take the average of that and apply it so it's all uniform.
right.
So when this bunch is only selling for $100 a square foot and this bunch is selling for $200 a square foot, I got to bring them all in at $150 a square foot,
And the reason that this is a problem is because, okay, we have this little township over here. And they're selling at essentially across the board, $100 a square foot. And they're all pretty even. There's
Easy for her to do.
really
Yeah.
good, there's a really good chance that she's gonna have no problem hitting the 33 1/3 over here. Over here, we've got a big value township. And they're all selling for $300 a square foot, but they all are. They're real
That's
good
easy
chance
too.
they're coming in at 33 it's when you've got the townships that are like this. That's the problem, because you've got the sales for houses that are actually assessed at that lower level.
Yeah.
They're selling more, but they're assessed at the lower level of the little guy. Then the ratio's off. Then is when you have factors.
So do we assess, you're saying we don't assess, no. So we can't assess the SUPs at a higher level because it has to be uniform. Because if I do comparables, I could find if let's say I have an SUP and you assessed it really high, and that's probably accurate. I can go find four non-SUPs.
You can't.
Well,
Assess that. You can assess that property with the SUP.
I guess what I'm saying, I just sold it for a high amount. You can use the sale price for that.
You can't chase sales.
Oh, all right.
It eventually becomes part of the problem though, because that sale price then That becomes part of the problem because that sale price then works into what the sales ratio is in that area.
Right.
It doesn't immediately affect what your assessed value is.
So just simplify it. Because these are selling higher, these are gonna get assessed at higher rate to keep the gap similar. And that's how it's hurting the lower person because they're paying more. The house is being assessed more because you have to add that factor. You have to add the factor to it, even though it probably won't
The
sell that
factor
much.
goes on everybody.
So if I'm assessed at 33 and there's a house at 30 and the factor is 1.5, does the 33 get assessed at 34.5 then?
Mhm.
Just to get this one to get the average at 33.
Correct.
Got it. That was the epiphany right there.
Yeah.
So it literally is, it's making both assessed higher.
Right.
Yeah. And we think we can solve that by making the licenses non-transferable, at least help with it. I mean, we don't know if it'll solve it actually, but we think
It's,
'cause I think it's a great idea. I'm
it's
just,
worth a shot. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of SUPs out there that they're there. And there's nothing to be done about the ones that have already been issued and all the rentals that have them. But going forward, like I said earlier, you could stop the bleed by, asking planning and development to draft a text amendment that essentially would just put in there that the SUP is not transferable. They would have to reapply.
Actually, I don't think you can legally do that because it's a zoning restriction, which has no relationship to property ownership. But you could allow all the existing rental licenses to continue and then draft an amendment that requires an SUP for new rental uses.
Yeah.
No, but you said that then it becomes null and void at transfer. You can't do that part.
No.
Yeah.
Not for the ones that are existing.
No, even for new ones, you couldn't, because it's a land use entitlement. Yeah, it's a land use entitlement. It's related specifically to the property, not the ownership. So it does that process by reinstituting the SUP process, which we don't use now. We use it for a few years, but we don't use it now. But that gives you the opportunity at the time someone applies for an SUP to look at the conditions of that neighborhood and determine if it's appropriate based upon the potential impact to grant that land use permit. That's the latitude you have, but you can't tie it to ownership. Yeah.
all right. Say that again because I'd like to tie it to ownership, but you're saying that's illegal to
You
do
cannot
that.
Zoning cannot be tied to ownership. Zoning is a land use process that goes with the characteristics of the property. It has no bearing on the ownership.
Can we change the ordinance so it's just a permit, it's not a zoning issue?
Well, it is just a permit right now. It's an administrative permit.
I didn't explain it right. I don't want it tied to land. It's just it's like a business permit. You have to have a business permit to operate, not tied to land. You see, I'm trying to work around.
Raise the fee.
Only if we get inspected every time.
Okay, so give examples, Bill, of special use permits.
Special use permits, the Havens Wood Processing Facility. Properties that come in for building a single family home on a 2-acre lot in a 40-acre district.
Mhm.
That's a special use permit. You can't just revoke those. All special use permits are treated the same in our zoning ordinance. And that's true in any zoning ordinance nationwide. They're all tied specifically to the property and the characteristics of the property, but have no relationship to the ownership. So you cannot, at the sale of a property, revoke a special use permit. You will be sued.
Because the property was designated a Airbnb, a guest accommodation.
You found that that property was appropriate for that use and nothing has changed. So you don't have a mechanism for revoking that at that point. You can reinstitute the special use permit process that would allow you to evaluate each property and those neighborhoods individually, which we have had a couple recently where we've had variances go before the planning commission that are related to guest accommodations licenses that were denied. So they can't get their guest accommodation license. That's what would happen. If it's found with the special use permit that, for example, you're on a small cul-de-sac, most property owners are permanent residents there and they object to this, you could make a finding to deny that special use permit in that particular instance based upon the characteristics of that neighborhood and the
Right.
property.
But not
But it can't be tied to the ownership.
ownership, got it.
Yeah.
So, and maybe this is just making it up. Can we just get rid of calling guest accommodation licenses special use permits and just call them licensing or permits? And have the same requirements? Then that would then it wouldn't be transfer. I don't even know if I don't even know if I'm making that up. You know what I mean?
It's two different things. I mean, if you're putting something somewhere else in the county code, like in the business and licensing section, then we don't have any jurisdiction over that in planning and development.
So what happens if I buy a house that is has an SUP for a guest accommodations, and then I decide I don't want to use the guest accommodations?
You can relinquish that.
And then
That happens frequently.
if I come back and I say 2 years later I want one because it was already zoned that one time, I have to get it
You
again.
have to get it again.
Got it.
If you relinquish it, let's say, I'll use myself as an example because I own a property for the last 11 years on Shenandoah Drive that's guest accommodation license, an SUP was issued back in 2002. If we were to decide, which we would have initially until we realized it was a good rental property, we were intending to move into in retirement, but we decided to keep using it as a rental. But if we moved into it in retirement, we would have relinquished the guest accommodation license. And then we would have to reinstate that, we would have had to have gone back through whatever process exists at the time that we'd want to reinstate.
Right, which is
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But
But once you give it up, you have to go back. If you want to get it again, you'll have to go back through the process that exists now, not the prior process.
Why would somebody give it up?
they won't live in it.
They just want to live in it full time.
But there are people that live in their homes and have a SUP that,
Or just let it ride.
I mean.
Well, yeah, there's no reason to give it up, but we do have
Right.
people giving it up. I don't know if they're objecting to the fee renewal fee on an annual basis or what, but we do. Melissa was telling me earlier today that our permit activity for guest accommodation licenses, the number's not increasing significantly at this point because we seem to be getting a lot of people that are moving into the homes permanently now and giving up the guest accommodation
Which is-
license,
What they're planning.
which is kind of keeping our numbers kind of steady at the moment.
So is there another solution that we know of so we can fix this?
The only thing I can see is moving forward, you could reinstate the special use permit requirement. And again, as I said, you'd be looking at each property individually at the characteristics of the neighborhood. And you have to make specific findings for a special use permit based upon neighborhood characteristics. And you would have the grounds to deny something at that time. So that's the only way you can really do it. You can't go back to those licenses that have been issued, whether they're a special use permit or just our normal administrative process now. If you were to revoke those, you're gonna get sued.
So how can you explain how it works? So I buy your property.
Yeah.
And there's 6 months left on the lease, which doesn't matter, right?
Right.
And it comes time to renew it. I renew it. Can you deny that to me then?
No, not as long as you're meeting the standards and pay the fees.
So then can you explain then how your one works on a transfer property? Someone bought
Well, we
it.
bought the property with an SUP.
I mean, your example that you said.
My example?
Okay.
Well, my example was my property.
Okay. But no, I mean, what you just said, we could do this.
Yeah, you
Okay.
could do this moving forward on properties on any new one, but you can't apply
But
anything to the
That's,
existing ones.
that's there.
Nothing can affect the existing ones, or you will be sued. But you can apply it to anyone requesting a new one if we amend the code to require a special use permit.
But I don't think that would help the sales.
It's not gonna help. your
Yeah,
issue.
it's not gonna help.
Yeah, right, 'cause
Yeah.
it's the existing ones that really do
Right,
the bottom.
right.
So you have
It's
to be
not-
very careful on anything that, with respect to zoning, it cannot be tied to ownership.
Yeah,
And you're risking a very large lawsuit if you try to revoke those existing licenses.
Oh, I mean, our state's attorney said that
He said
straight
that
out.
too.
right.
Yeah.
This was just for informational purposes.
Right.
only, So you can,
Well, it
Get an idea
really
of what
is
was,
because, I mean, you're sitting here, you know, you're expected to make all of these big decisions, you know, but this stuff matters. It's not, you know, it's not gonna necessarily change the decisions that you make, but it'll help you, understand what's behind it. It's just, once we realized that, we couldn't just make them not transferable, we realized that, well, this isn't going to probably help us in the long run, but at least it gives you a better understanding. And that's why this item and the next item was brought to both development and planning and finance because of the financial implications.
Like, I'll just give you an example right now out in Thompson. I've got 5 good sales for this quarter, and I've got a median ratio of 5.643. And that's because vacant land is selling for $30,000. We have it assessed at $1,000, and there's a transferable boat dock that we don't assess for. So that's skewing our sales ratio, 5% versus 33. So when you have all these sales that are at 5% and I don't have enough sales at 33 and I have to slap a factor on there, they're like, what do you mean?
So when you do the factor, that's only in non-developed lots.
It's everything.
I mean, even if I have a house on it.
Yeah, and it's applied to the land and the house.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a
Every
question. I'm
particular-
not trying to be anything. I'm really asking this question. I'm not really, I mean, the sales ratio and all that stuff and factors are your issue. My issue as a county board member and as a taxpayer is my dollar amount. If the levy is only increasing 3% average every year, what do I care what my house values are? Because it's only gonna go, unless my house, I mean, if everyone in my townships goes up, I'm only gonna pay, I'm gonna pay the same amount. The rate actually might go down if everyone's value goes up. Well, I mean, how is this making me pay a lot more?
Well, just because the rate goes down doesn't mean that the districts aren't getting more money.
Yeah,
Right.
Right.
So,
because there could be new houses. I guess what I'm saying is.
No.
Like, when the rates get jacked up, are you able to go over the 3% and capture more like you do with new buildings? You know what I mean on that question? That makes sense.
say it again.
Like, you can only get 3%. Let's say CPI is at 3%, because that's
Okay.
usually what it is, 2
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, yeah.
Sure.
3%. So, River School takes 10 million, they can ask for 10.3 million next year.
No, not necessarily. It just depends on how the new construction is reflected in the.
Right, Right. So they could capture more than the 0.3 if there's a lot of new construction.
They could.
Correct. So when these houses are assessed for a lot more, does that still, if they're already built, does that still fall within the CPI, or can they capture that extra assessment values and make me pay more?
That's just reassessment.
So you can't make them pay.
The new construction is new value.
But that's what I'm saying. Let's say there's no new construction. But and CPI is 3%. And so, because of this issue, all these houses with factors get valued a lot more. Does that count as new capture and I have to pay more taxes, or is it still, does the levy still say it stays at 0.3 no matter, or 3% no matter what?
It's not going to be considered new construction.
So in reality, the taxes are only going up 3% no matter what, whatever the ratios are and everything.
The
No,
taxes go up because the various taxing bodies request more money and get it approved.
But they can only get 3%, whatever CPI is.
but the 3%, you have to take into consideration that that's just the school. You have to add in all the other taxing bodies, but you add a factor onto, and you add a factor.
No, I understand that. I mean, I'm trying to do a round number. Let's say I paid $10,000 in property taxes and everyone's factor went up 3%. It doesn't matter what my house is value. I mean, I'm gonna pay $300 more.
No,
No.
not necessarily. Depends what the taxing districts
Yeah.
ask for and get
But
approved.
it doesn't matter, you ask for, you only get CPI anyway. We're told what our tax levy is gonna be. I mean, that's how it always happened we'd always ask for 5% and you'd say, you're only getting 2.5 this year, Mike.
But I think you're
Yeah, that's what- yeah.
crossing the streams a little bit.
That's what I
You're
want, yeah,
kinda you're talking about being a taxpayer, and then you're talking about being a taxing body, and
but-
those,
That's what I mean. If all the taxing bodies can only raise it 3%. it doesn't matter if my house is evaluated at 50,000 or 150, I'm from last year, unless something went down, I'm only gonna pay 3% more.
And you're making an assumption that not only is there no new construction.
Yeah, no, I'm just for
no new
mathematical purposes,
construction.
I'm just asking
Nobody's got it.
for mathematical purposes. So what I'm saying is, what do I really care what the ratio is? For me as a taxpayer, I mean, I know you guys care and you should.
You care because you aren't necessarily paying your fair share of the burden.
Right.
So if I'm an SUP person, I'm paying more.
No, you're
No.
paying what the
Paying
piece of
less.
property is assessed at because of the various things it has.
Now, how, I don't know how to complain less because you said the factors applied. If I had a 33, I asked you that, and and everyone else was a
Because
30,
when
it would be a
it's-
34.5.
And I also said when it's reassessed and those are selling for $200 a square foot compared to a normal house selling at $100 a square foot, we gotta put them at $150 a square foot. So the people that are selling for $100 a
Have to
square
pay
foot
more.
are paying $50 more and you're paying $50 less.
Okay, so you did say that, but when I asked for the factor, you said the factor still went up, so I
Well,
don't,
then if I have to add a factor, it goes on to everybody.
right, so I would pay more then. If I was the high end.
Everyone
Everybody pays
will.
more.
I understand that, right? But only 3% of the increase of the levy. Do you see what I'm saying?
I don't think it's appropriate for you to tie those two things together in this discussion. They don't really, I mean, they go together, but it's still.
But no, well, because tax bills are gonna go out real soon, right?
Yeah.
So we're all gonna have constituents say, why the hell did my taxes go up? And I wanna be able to answer the question. You see what I'm saying? So I just want, so I do think it's an appropriate question to ask. I just want to make sure I can answer the question.
I'm not saying that your question's inappropriate. I'm saying trying to tie them together and make them both make sense together might not necessarily be appropriate.
Well, I don't think the right answer is because they're assessed more, no matter what the reason, because it should only go up with the levy went up. It depends on what you're valued at and all that. I mean, I understand all that, but unless someone pass a tax referendum,
So if you have, let's say you have your assessed value at 100,000 and I slap on a 10% factor, then the tax rate goes up. So your tax bill is still gonna go up more than that 3%.
Because again, that tax rate is going to be calculated on the value and the value is going to be increased because of the factor.
all right, so I think I'm sorry, I'm talking about this. I think the tax levy's the tax rate's based on the amount of levy though, with your assessed value, it's done reversed.
That is true.
So if my house went up and everyone's went up the same, the tax rate should go down.
No,
It,
Depends on what they ask for.
right.
yeah, yes. Right, but what I'm saying is, when someone says, why the hell my taxes went up? The answer is, I don't know, I mean, I can't,
Complicated.
thank you.
And that is true.
It
You're
is,
having-
I agree with you 100%,
If you're
that's this conversation.
that you're having trouble following this, the normal citizen off the street who notices taxes went up a significant amount is not gonna buy your argument because you really can't explain it to him. So he's gonna understand it because we're having trouble with it too.
You know, something on the boat docks. In Missouri, the boat docks are considered personal property. They're not added into it. I have property with a boat dock, but that's listed as a personal property. It's not included in the value of the property per se.
We don't. That's why the sales ratio is at 5. Because they're selling for 30,000 and they don't take it out of personal property and the state doesn't allow us to kick it out. So now we got land valued at 30,000 and people are saying, I can't even give this stuff away.
Because I'm sold to that.
Yeah.
That's crazy that the realtors don't just take it out. Everything in Missouri, if they sell a property with a boat dock, it's listed separately as personal property in addition to the actual.
They don't care. Once that transfer deck is signed and the signatures are on it and they record it, we call them, we're like, hey, we need to fix this. They can't even find the buyer and seller. They don't care.
Laura, you've been giving talks to different groups. Is this something that you've talked to groups about, or have you answered a lot of questions to groups about how taxes are formulated?
Yeah, we talk to people every day.
Well, and I think this is really pertinent for Joe Davis County because we are a second home community. I mean, we're a small rural county and yet we have how many guest accommodations licenses? That's just county, we're not even talking about municipalities. So lots of second homes here. So this is a problem that she's running into across the entire county. So when people are complaining about their taxes, this is part of it. This is part of it. So that's, I think, why she brought this to you and is taking it to finance because, you guys are going to want to have some sort of an answer when people start ringing your phone, wanting to know what's going on.
I'm noticing even in my own neighborhood, there's some homes that recently sold are now second homes. I mean, the people, I very seldom even see anybody at the house if they're there for a weekend. And these are 500 or 600,000 or higher homes.
Let me ask one more question, then you guys have been saying, I'm so glad Laura brought this to us, but let's just use Guilford Township for an example. In Guilford Township, only no new construction, just so I can get the math in my head right. The CPI is 3%, but her factor is 5. She had to add a 5 factor to everybody. The rate, the dollar amount would go up 3%, but the rate would go down.
You should.
Okay,
You would
That-
think it would, but then you,
well, yeah,
you. well,
I did say it right. I mean, that's what I'm, okay.
you have exemptions that.
No, I understand that. Yeah, in a perfect world, just so the man, I understand all that. I just want, in a perfect world,
With all things being equal, Mike, that's what you're trying to say.
perfect world, all things equal. That's a perfect world, Jake.
And not being Illinois.
Yeah.
It's complicated
Okay,
mess.
so no, I do. I think I do understand it. I'm just wanted to make sure. So
Now, Laura's not going to be at Thursday night's meeting. So all those who are here tonight, it'll be a Thursday night meeting. You need to help explain to the rest of the people what she's telling us tonight. And as I understand it, Laura, you only brought this to us as information. There really isn't a damn thing we can do about it. But try to explain what the situation is, correct?
Right, that's correct. I mean, I do have a little bit of a silver lining, just from the first quarter. But again, it's a 3-year ratio study. And so the prior 2-3 years are still low, so we might get hit with factors in certain townships. But right now, my medians are at 33.8, 34.7, 37.2, 36. I got a problem and well, there's a quad this year, so that should hopefully work out. Like I said, it's still early for Thompson, that 5%, but I hope something works out. Otherwise, we're really in trouble. I got 30.9, 27.7. So it's starting to come around where the sales are 1/3 of the assessed value. I mean, it's taken a long time because, sales were just happening so quickly and we couldn't get the assessed value up fast enough.
But those numbers are from the Eager Beaver assessors have actually got their work in now already, and the other townships may not be
No,
close
these
to
are just
33.
the sales,
Okay.
the sales that we've took
All right.
from the first quarter compared to last year's assessed value.
Bill, can I just have you restate or clarify again, the special use permit allows rental for that property and stays with that property.
Yes.
The license for short-term rental comes from a different part in the ordinance.
That's under the business licensing section. And that's a revenue producer for the county. But the special use permit is strictly a land use entitlement granted through the zoning ordinance. And that's why you can't affect that or tie that to ownership.
So there's no direct cost to that other than the pain in the butt going through the process.
Right.
because the license is separate from the permit, is there any way to control the license that the license wouldn't just automatically transfer?
As I suggested before, you raise the fee.
But Diane said what I tried to say, and she's doing a way better job at it. When the property sells, is the license go with it?
When the property sells, the new owner has to apply for a license in their name. Back when we bought our property, it happened to be December of 2015, I believe it was. And that was near the end of that annual renewal period. So we just applied for a new renewal and it was renewed. But the way it happens is, yeah, the new owner has to transfer that license into their name and we have to confirm that they've met all the standards still. But there's nothing, it has to be granted if they've met the standards.
But that doesn't stop anything from happening, because if their house one day ago was allowed, you can say denied for no, I mean, you can't. You can't deny it for any
If the
reason
property-
because
if
it
the
already was.
property Is in compliance.
You
then it has
yeah,
nothing to do with
right.
ownership. If it's still in compliance, you have to grant it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that license lasts until whatever the drop dead
Right.
date was on that particular license, they have to renew again.
And if it lapses and they don't renew, then they'd have to go through whatever process is in place.
But the
that
zoning
time.
SUP stays with the land.
Yep. Yep.
And there's two, it's a single bedroom zone and SUP, there's two with it.
No, that's two different things. The standards for guest accommodations uses are currently tied to the number of bedrooms for parking, setbacks, things of that sort, to try to minimize impacts upon neighboring properties. And that's part of the guest accommodations licensing process. We do what's called a zoning certificate first, where we confirm that all those standards are met on the property. If they are, then they go apply for the guest accommodation license. And it's granted because there's no basis for denying it under the current process.
As I recall, some of the suggested changes from the study group that went on for a year was to basically make those restrictions all the same for
That's correct.
guest accommodations for non-guest accommodations property, correct?
That's correct.
And that's certainly part of our goals, to encourage ease of use of the zoning ordinance. It's interesting to see how the communities that have found that they have to put a moratorium on any more guest accommodations. And that had to be a hard decision. They had to weigh the issues that they were confronted with and give up that revenue and tax base. We have some people online, so I want to make sure if the board members had any question right now. Seeing none, we'll go.
I just heard.
Mike Holt here. I guess I'll hold my questions till the finance committee. I think you guys have worked this over pretty good. We'll go through it again Thursday night at the finance committee, the way it sounds.
But if it's a question directed to Laura, you better ask her tonight because she won't be there Thursday.
No, I think no, I'm good. Thanks.
Laura, thank you very much for putting up with us and giving us the facts. And I know that we will have people in the public ask us, like Mike said, and I know I've heard comments of, well, I heard my taxes are going to be going way up, so I think people just get a little bit frightened.
I mean, I appreciate everything that you do with the constituents, but honestly, if you can't explain it, I would just have them call our office.
Misinformation kills us at the courthouse, and it with all the best intentions of someone trying to explain something, once you put a seed out there that doesn't quite make sense, you've made our job 3 times as hard trying to explain it now correctly.
Well, seeing no other hands raised for online, we'll go on to B under new business is the presentation and discussion of the financial impact of submarket rate loans. And Angie has prepared some details in your packet. It is page 15, 14. Let's start on 14. Angie, you want to kind of review some of these?
Well, I just basically put this together, again, this is another item that I put together, to be presented at both development and planning and finance. And it's an analysis, lending versus, investing, and that's why these two committees are getting it, because development and planning, talks about lending money, finance talks about investing money. So we talk a lot about loans and what the impact would be. There's been some back and forth in meetings in the past, and I thought, I'm just gonna put some numbers on paper so that you can see what it actually is, what the committees recommend and what the county board approves is completely up to them. But this is just financial numbers showing what the actual cost is to lend X amount of dollars and what the actual cost is to invest it. So.
This is helpful. And we have to remember that when, say, that $100,000 and the opportunity cost is 43,000, we have to remember that that's over a 10-year period. I think if we remember back to our goal setting, what we constantly hear is we want to have young people move to our county, to stay in our county. We want to have people work and live in our county. And so this idea of helping small business was a method that we thought would be helpful to keep and encourage those people who are here. If we take a look at all these numbers, maybe we also have to look at, are there other things that we can do that accomplish that goal that we really started with when LaDonna had the goal setting? Mike?
Yeah, so I thank you for this, but I totally disagree with the way we're looking at it, and I was gonna be more prepared for tomorrow, but that you're forgetting how what that doesn't show is that a CD or whatever we're investing is a passive investment. It earns interest, but it does nothing for the local economy. An economic development loan is an active investment that helps create jobs, housing, childcare, new business activity. It grows sales tax, property values, and overall tax bases. And we're just forgetting all that stuff. And that's the stuff that we need to keep our property tax low, is more sales tax, more properties built, more jobs created, all that stuff. So I'll have more stuff ready on Thursday. But we're looking at it. I think we're looking at it from a budget standpoint, and that's not the way to look at it. I think looking at it is from a bank standpoint is a lot better. So but we'll talk Thursday.
Yeah, I presented it in this way because this is measurable. This is dollars and cents, and this is math. You can't, and that's why I did this for these committees, because talking about it's not measurable. I mean, to talk about economic development, you can't measure what that investment could be. Whereas investing money in this particular scenario, this is measurable. You know how much money you would make if you invested in a treasury note for a 10-year period. This is what it would be. You're rolling the dice, I guess, in some respects, because you can't measure it. And that's why I put it together, not to say one's better than the other, It's more so to see it on paper.
This is only one factor in our making decision whether these programs we develop make sense. The difference between the 1.75 and the 4.317 is 5.73 times more you're getting out of your money over that 10 years, 5.7 times more. That's a concrete number. The other factors, yeah, they generate more jobs, perhaps, more revenue, perhaps, but they're not measurable in the short run or even in the medium run. So these are only presented as useful numbers to say, does this program make sense on this basis?
I understand 100% you're saying, but then in that case, then why do we have economic development? Why do other towns do economic development? I mean, I think when we started this 15, 20 years ago, when it was Tecita, we looked at Dubuque and said, we want to do that. How does Dubuque measure their growth? I measure their growth by all the new buildings and the new people moving and all that stuff, but you can't see that on paper. So, what I'm feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, is that because we can't measure the growth, we shouldn't do economic development. And like I said, I'm one ready more for Thursday, but I'm trying not to be single-minded here, but if you look at our white paper, because I'm super proud of this number, we average over $400,000 in a 15-year period, Elizabeth, over the average sales tax. If you saw that, it was $400,000. So you can measure that number. Now, I don't know how we could do that in the county because it's so big. It's a little bigger economy, but that's $40 million in a 15-year period of new economic activity in the village of Elizabeth. $40 million of economic activity that was brought in. That's way more than, 1,600,000. And we could do the same thing here. I don't know how to measure it, but that's a pretty good case example. So
We had a program where we donated $100,000 to various entities a year or so ago. I haven't seen any concrete evidence that has increased money to the county. Do you have any? I'd be interested in seeing that.
It's difficult to measure what would happen if we didn't do anything. And it's difficult to know if people make choices based upon some incentive. This is not an incentive that whether I would stay or go. It's more of David will tell you, he doesn't have people beating down his door to borrow this money. It's not a lot of money that's going out. And when you break it down in a 10-year period, what we spend in discretionary things that, whether it be for parks or scholarships or woodwork or whatever, $2,000 a year. Is that really something that is going to make a difference to the image of our community?
I just wanted to say again, when I was asked to put this together, it was just to put these on paper. I'm not saying myself anything at all, but I don't think that the intent was to say, don't put money into economic development. I think that you need to have the numbers in front of you to know what the measurable cost will be to invest essentially versus to lend. And then you make your decision based on that. And it's an informed decision. You know that you're not going to, if you grant $100,000 loan, you know that the measurable loss, just lost earnings, 43,345. If you're okay with that, because you're willing to extend that out there and roll the dice and, and that's not a really good analogy. I'm sorry. I should not say that. No, I'm sorry. Do you have a better one?
invest in opportunity.
Invest in opportunity. If you as a board want to invest in the economic development opportunity, that is your right to do. You just need, I think, to everyone be aware that because this is taxpayer money, this is what we have been elected to do. We feel this is the best thing to do, and this is what we would like to do. And that's it.
At $400,000 loan, you have to be able to show a $4,333.50 increase to the county each year to justify that loan.
You know, in your chart here, you put down some good points, additional considerations, fiduciary responsibility. We have to answer how we spend the money, president liquidity. And those are valid points.
They are, but I would counter with the money that I think we shouldn't have spent on the courthouse. That none of it went to local economic development because it was all done. So we're gonna disagree on that, so.
Well, I think these are public issues.
And with the grant program, we come out with 10 winners in the county and 220,000 losers.
We don't, like I said, we don't need to, well, we can't discuss on the agenda, but that, the guy that you said, the economic development guy from Ogle County or something, Carmont, you know his name, pronounce his name.
Colorado.
When I asked him, and I brought this up to me, I'll bring it again. I asked him, how do you measure that? Because he's a big economic development guy. And he said, you look at your 10-year portfolio, are the businesses still there? How many people do they employ and things like that? So, I mean, for you to sit there and say, we gave $100,000 less than a year ago, I don't see any money for it. I think that's pretty short-sighted. We can't measure that. We can measure it a year from now. I mean, every year we can measure it. Did we save those businesses? Did they hire new people? I mean, if you want to have a questionnaire on the application form that they have to fill out every year, I'm all for that. I mean, I think that'd be great data, but, I mean, I look at the greater Dubuque area. Let's look what they do. Well, how do they measure it? How does that guy's name again? I can never pronounce it. How does he do it? Yeah.
And this isn't about grants. You know, this is a lending versus
Right.
investing. So it doesn't have anything to do with grants. It's just strictly percentages and numbers, and that's really all this is. The grant program, again, that is a board decision that you make based on whatever decisions, you know, or information you're given.
Go back to that. I mean, is that our goal, is to put money in a savings account and make cash? Or is our goal to get it out and grow our county? I mean, that's a decision up to us. I
We
mean,
have to remember, it is not something the state expects us to do because
I know.
we're an arm of the state.
well, I don't like empty. I want my property taxes to be low. And the best way to do that is to generate more sales tax. Because we are blessed to be in Joe Davis County, most of our sales tax comes from outside. We have a positive pull factor. So that is the best way to do it. And there's no, because of Illinois, you guys all know this, because of Illinois and because of whatever reasons, no 400-person business is going to come to Joe Davis County. The best chance we have is to grow the business that has 2 employees to 3.
Auto
4,
sales.
and do all that stuff. And that's what that $100,000 grant is, the best way to do that. So, and loans. So
But again, this is just
numbers, I think that they're awesome numbers. Thank
you know, and I mean, I feared that this was gonna create this kind of a conversation, and that's not what the intention was, I don't believe. Yeah, well, okay, all right, I just, you know, it needs to be, I think, you know, it's really hard to, I think, see yourself, you know, as the stewards of the county and being fiscally responsible and making those decisions to be fiscally responsible and trying to stimulate the economy and do all of these things when, you know, we just got done talking about people, you know, when people get their tax bills next week, you know, I mean, do you think that when they see their tax bill and that it went up, do you think that they want the county doing anything but saving their money, earning money, reduce my taxes? You know, those are the types of things you're also going to hear about, you know, so that I think it just all goes together.
I think they all want our county to grow. I mean, our school population is down, everything's down, our taxes are up. That's the only way to get out of this, is not by saving money, is to grow our economy.
Well, this has been a good discussion, and this is going to be a great resource really for the board members we have now and even the board members in the future, because it really does put the facts right out there. I appreciate very much the effort and the detail that you put together, Angie. I think we all did. Let's move on to our reports now. The building and zoning monthly report Bill has in the packet.
Let me start out by just giving you some news about the upcoming session regarding the zoning code amendments. That's scheduled for May 27th at 6 p.m. We've moved the location to the county courthouse on Bench Street. The notices are being published next week. Melissa and I have been going through the amendments, to get the package ready for the public viewing. That'll be ready by the time the notice is published. Don't want to discuss it any further tonight because you're all going to be making decisions in the future on it, and we're outside of the public hearing. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Permit data for March, we had a total of 20 building permits issued with a total construction value of 1.897 million. Of those permits, there were 3 new homes with a total valuation of 855,000, 2 accessory structures with a value of 405,000, 1 addition, remodel, deck, or other with a construction value of 72.9, and 1 renewable energy project. Your report also includes all the renewals for guest accommodations, etc. The activity's been a little low, but we're coming out of winter now. I have been looking at tons of building permits this week, so the activity's picking up again. I expect larger numbers in April at this point. So yeah, coming out of winter, things seem to be picking up pretty noticeably right now.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah.
On your sheet here from Planning Development and the current program, I personally believe that you have 2 steps in the approval process. I believe there should be a 3rd step in the middle, because I think the people in the area where a new guest accommodation permit is going to be issued should have the right to object to that permit or support it in some kind of hearing process. I had to go through that process in Missouri with my properties. The first thing I had to do was go to the courthouse in the planning and zoning and have them set that up to determine whether someone else could, whether you could do that. Because I think people are getting kind of frustrated in certain areas, especially the Galena territory and Galena, that there's too many licenses and it's starting to max out. I know in my neighborhood, I really don't want to have a guest accommodation in my neighborhood.
The process as it's currently created doesn't include that. You would need to amend the code to do it.
Well,
But
I'd like to see
our
that.
discussion earlier regarding instituting the special use permit again, that would take care of that because there's noticing involved with that. That would take care of that issue.
I would like to see something like that.
The board will have to give direction to amend the code at that
Okay.
point.
I mentioned that when you had the ad hoc committee, I showed up at a meeting and mentioned it. So this is not the first time I'm bringing it up, but
Yeah.
I think when you have some residential neighborhoods, you shouldn't always have to have some are being converted more and more to the guest accommodations, and it's not sitting because it's not the same people, the same stuff.
Yeah, again, that will take an amendment to the code and the county board will have to direct us to do that. I totally get what you're saying, and we're witnessing that as well. As I said earlier, when we see cases where they're requesting a variance from some of the standards to relate to short-term rental properties, we've had 2 of them denied recently, so they can't get a guest accommodations license. So reinstituting the special use permit process would create a public process that does involve noticing the neighbors, but we don't.
Is there
have
something you can give us so we know what to implement?
I'm not sure what you mean.
He wants some text to cover his idea.
Yeah, it's as simple as just adding guest accommodations as a special use in all zoning districts. in all the residential zoning districts. Again, it's a code amendment, but that would trigger all the findings for issuance of a special permit by the planning commission. And ultimately by the county board, but it does take an amendment to the code. I can't just unilaterally do.
No,
that
I understand.
administratively.
I'd like to try to find, some way to get it into the code and how you go about it.
We can put it on the agenda and we can do a code here, can't we?
Discussion and possible action regarding market impacts on the assessed value of properties constructed for rental activity.
We can do
That
that.
was the discussion.
We
You
can
know,
do that.
depending on how you would word this motion,
Mhm.
the recommended development, they make that motion, they go to county board. and
The
then
county
they-
board. The amendment's actually pretty simple. It just needs to come from the board
Right.
ultimately.
And that this committee would have to make
Mhm.
is too far different than what this item A
Yeah.
is. This would have to go back on the agenda,
Right.
worded in a different way, and if you want that, we can, I can work with Bill to
Yeah.
come up with a wording for a motion.
Yeah.
For an agenda item.
Agenda item in the future, yeah.
Agenda.
And again, it's a simple amendment, but it has to go through the proper channels.
I assume, Bill, that one of your denials was the people that had the 6-bedroom guest accommodation that want to put in a mere 20-foot fire pit 10 feet from the woods.
That was one of them. And then a second one was, well, there were actually three then. Because there was that one that you're talking about, then there was one at the last meeting where it was that was originally a 3-bedroom home that over the years had been converted to a 6-bedroom home, requiring more parking. And it was in a neighborhood that had no guest accommodation licenses. They had to request variances from standards. Those variances were denied. So the only way they can do it is to pare back the number of bedrooms and meet our development standards for guest accommodations, which I don't know that they're willing to do. And then there was another one prior to that, where the property owner, again, it was a situation where there were variances granted because they were too close, denied because they were too close to the property line. She's actually modifying her home so she can meet the standards and get the license.
Okay.
The 6-bedroom one, they have to like put in sprinklers if it's so big. Is that the one?
That's not related to.
That's a different
That's a
issue. Got
different
it.
issue. This relates to setbacks and parking.
Got it.
And Bill, just remind me that zoning hearings that are for a variance oftentimes have neighbors come
Yeah.
and give their point of view.
That's right. They're all notified. And with a special use permit, it'd be the same process. And then ultimately the county board would consider approving it.
But- Did somebody have a guest accommodation with us? No.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the current process since 2006, I believe Melissa said, there is no special use permit. It just goes through an administrative process. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if we, Madam Chairman, if you could put that on the next meeting,
Thank you.
I would appreciate it.
Bill, back to the workshop and what the ad hoc committee did, when we were at that workshop meeting.
Yeah.
Some were zoning issues and some were building code issues or something. So
Some that are
when-
in the
yeah, there was another one.
business license code. There are like 3 different sections that can't go to the planning commission.
So when will those be?
After I get through the.
You want to do one at a time? Sounds
Yeah,
good.
I
Yeah,
don't
no,
want to be
nope. I just,
balancing up many things at the same time.
sounds good.
The critical ones are the ones that are going to the
Before you-
planning commission. Yeah.
Is there any questions for Bill for his monthly report? Any other comments or suggestions? Not hearing any, we'll go on to Northwest Illinois Economic Development.
All right. Spring is always a busy time of the month. Office has a lot of things going. Notably, after 2 years after the committee last met, working with Village of Stockton and Community Development and Planning, specifically Dan Pepin, Stockton submitted for site readiness. And the deadline for the overall program is this coming Thursday. And right now we're in a wait and see on where we stand with our application, which was for feasibility of a little over 100 acres, along with a market analysis that would explain to us if an industrial park makes sense, which types of industries would fit best in the Stockton area. So coincidentally, after it got put in, Connolly Construction, Origin, the village, Community Development and Planning, and myself, we all got together to talk about next steps because we are optimistic that we will get a positive response. The program has plenty of funding left for the outstanding applications that are being asked of it. And twice the governor's office spent dumped another $10 million into the initial bucket. So it increased quite substantially, and that was based on community interest from across the state. As far as I know, Sterling may have submitted something, and we are competing, as Region 1. But outside of maybe an application coming out of the south, I haven't heard of any other applications for either side of the program. And remember, this is a two-sided program. Stockton went for feasibility. They could have gone for implementation funding. That's the other side of the program. So I was talking with John Crichton earlier about this. He might bring it up to some of you. If all of a sudden it is shown that it makes sense in Stockton, then Stockton should be encouraged to dip again into site readiness for the other side, which is the buying of land, putting in the roads, utilities, all that sort of thing. And then they might come up against competition with Galena, who remains interested in the program and might be applying next year. But this is an annual offering. There is no guarantee it will come back next year. And if it does, what form it will have. But given the longevity of the program and the popularity in 2026, I'm hoping that Stockton is able to go back again if this shows that an industrial park makes sense.
Every week.
There was a real collaboration of, private industries, the village, and then my organization. So we're quite proud that we got an application in, and I'm hoping this spring we'll hear back one way or the other. They've already started to announce round one, which came in about 3 months ago. Round one ended. And those were all for capital investments across the state. We haven't heard anything about feasibility yet. So who knows? We'll just be waiting. And the notice will come into the village, and then Stephanie or Mitch will let us all know when we get back together again on it. So we're optimistic for that. Any questions about site readiness? Diane?
I just want to make a comment that it was exciting to hear that because they're in the opportunity zone, the webinar talked about using the benefits of the opportunity zone funding to layer it with everything else. So they were looking for anything shovel ready, and they compared the state of Illinois to other states. And because this program comes through the federal government, Illinois was very low in applications and usage in the past. So they were very eager to see it used in Illinois. So I thought it was perfect timing.
So that's also my report. Opportunity zones are a federal program tied to census tracts that show poverty. So in Northwest Illinois, in Joe Carroll, there are currently 2 opportunity zones, which are federally funded opportunities where a large investor can defer capital gains for a period in order to get benefits. So they're trying to encourage development in poverty-related areas to bolster and rise those communities through a unique ways to leverage capital gains situations. Nobody in Joe Carroll, according to Black Hawk Hills Regional Council, has ever tapped into Opportunity Zone. It's something that's out there, that's available. The programs also have a shelf life. And so the current zones are all needing to be reapplied for. So last week, Black Hawk Hills, myself, actually the clerk in Stockton, we all put forward the Stockton census tract again for redesignation. So all designations across the US all have to be reapplied for in order to get the next, say, decade of benefit of opportunity zone status. So I did it for all three. So not just Stockton and Savannah, which also has an existing zone, but the village of Mount Carroll, the area around that actually has the highest poverty rate right now, according to census, and they are now eligible for their own zone. It's all the same program. It's all related back to capital gains. Opportunity zones are not for the mom and pop shops. These are for large corporations or people that have sizable interest in reinvesting for gain that tax benefit. I don't fully understand it. I encourage everybody to advise or talk to a tax accountant because it is all related to tax law.
But I asked that question in the webinar, is there a minimum? And they said, no, there's not. And what it offers, I mean, it would take more than one small investor, but you can invest in this property or gain. And if you hold that money in that project for 10 years, you don't have to pay any taxes on the capital gain. So it really is an IRS run program.
Yes, and to your point about being layered with other programs, it is complementary to Enterprise Zone. It's complementary to CPACE. These are meant to be stacked, and the result of it could be a factory or something substantial. That's usually where an opportunity zone project lands. You know, it's at $1 million on up sort of threshold. And again, it's not an opportunity I've had to delve into because it's not come up from any inquirer up to this point. I see it as an attraction tool. So for corporations outside of Joe Carroll, if they're just looking, where can I put my capital gains for 10 years? We're all of a sudden on that map. Now, remember, the reason why we're on the map is because of poverty rates. So it's good and bad. But all you have to do is put forward the nomination, takes about 25 minutes. Nonprofits like economic development organizations and Black Hawk Hills Regional Council can nominate elected officials, municipalities. So there are others that can apply. So if you're so inclined and you want to take 25 minutes, I gave the information already to Angie and she can forward that on to you.
So just real quick, from the county standpoint, is that just something that we're saying, yeah, we want to be part of this enterprise zone, or what kind of commitment is it from the county then?
It's opportunity zone. And if you wanted to make a nomination, for me, I spoke about how it can be coupled with other benefits. I mentioned how Stockton is going down the path of a potential new industrial park. So, you know, from an economic development voice, I put forward different things that are important to a reviewer to understand, like, why should this happen to Stockton, Savannah, or Mount Carroll? Angie would have maybe a different perspective. Planning development might have a different perspective. So, but at minimum, Black Hawk Hills Regional Council and myself have put forward Stockton, and it was, 25 minutes for each nomination.
The locations are actually bounded by the census tract. It's not anything that we would have a choice on where it was. It has to fall into that criteria.
Correct. And it's quite big. I mean, it goes down well to the south. Is that Pleasant Valley? So it extends well south of Stockton. It's not just the village. It's a wide area. And so you can go on to, the Opportunity Zone website and you can pull up those tracks. They have some signifier data like the poverty rate, the population of that census tract, a couple other signifiers. And you can also see the maps for each of these zones. In each situation, I'll use the one out of Savannah. It tracks all the way up into the depot. Not all 16,000 plus acres of the depot, but the industrial part. And that was made possible about 6 years ago. Black Hawk Hills Regional Council petitioned, went through a lengthy process to expand the Savannah zone so it would include the depot and anything to the west side of Route 84, because that's the industrial corridor. which if you get a development in the development in the industrial park of the depot, well, that's going to alleviate poverty in Savannah, because you're talking about new employment or expanded employment or better employment.
Jacob did mention enterprise zones. Stockton's not in an enterprise zone. It would have to be connected to a current enterprise zone. I believe the closest will either be Hanover or Lena.
The Stockton Enterprise Zone is the Northern Illinois Enterprise Zone, which is governed by Greater Freeport Partnership.
Yeah, okay,
And
they're part of that.
They're already included
Okay.
in the eligibility of it.
They just aren't connected.
About 3 weeks ago, Andrea Schultz Winter, who is the zone administrator, I got her a meeting with the village and also community development and planning. The idea is for Stockton to preemptively put forward particular parcels to be added to the zone that Andrea administers. That
It
the
needs- it
process,
needs to be
there's plenty
physically
of
connected by
capacity.
You'd be physically connected by a 3-foot strip, so it already.
Yep,
exists
and
for the
then
zone.
once all the taxing bodies are like, hey, that's fine with us, meaning the school, the library, and everybody's in agreement, and then it can be added. And so a company that were to come in could immediately, like they would be able to in Hanover, immediately take advantage of it. Stockton and other communities, they have that option, but the communities have to preemptively put forward particular parcels, and that could be housing parcels, commercial industrial parcels for whatever reason. And as long as there's agreement of the taxing bodies, it can go forward for adoption. Maybe I'm using the wrong terms, but that there is a process. And so I'd like to have additional conversations with other communities that have particular parcels that need some additional incentive layers to make things happen there. Maybe in East Dubuque, it could be for housing developments above the bridge there. You know, so you have to identify as a community how to go forward with enterprise zone.
Angie has a
I think it's really important that before you start pushing an enterprise zone, you need to realize that when the enterprise zone was renewed for 20 years, there's only one community in the current enterprise zone that has passed a resolution to abate tax, and that's the county. None of the schools, you've got East Dubuque that's in a enterprise zone, the school, the library, the township, the municipality, they have not passed resolutions. So enticing them to, hey, add these parcels to the enterprise zone, I'd be very sure that you have commitments, because the current enterprise zone as it is, there is one in Hanover. The only abatement, if someone were to apply for an enterprise zone abatement, would be the county tax.
But
And
they do get
there
the
is
no tax
an
on building
application
material.
standing for that coming out of Hanover too.
But isn't it true that they still are not paying tax on building materials as part of the enterprise?
It depends.
It's a building,
They-
it's building materials and a property tax abatement for say 3 years, depending on the project.
State. I mean, so if they go to Dubuque or wherever, it's
But they could buy it from a merchant that was in.
Yeah, you have to use Illinois businesses. Okay, everybody talks about youth retention and how do you do that? So last year, Highland Community College got designated as a Pathways to Success community, and that's really trying to align workforce development training to workforce, whether that's an adult or youth. So part of that, and we had a meeting yesterday, is to develop things like Build to Grow It, a Build to Grow It summer school, job shadow programs, apprenticeship programs, workforce shadow programs. So Northwest Illinois Economic Development has over 60 members. Last week, we did launch a new job shadow push, and that's to really look at the 16 to 25-year-old, but also those that are changing careers that are interested in going in a different route than what they have previously been going down. So that is something that will be evolving really through next year as we kind of build out this idea more. We already have a number of our primary members, including JC Co-op, Atkins Energy, and others that are already doing this. So it's really making it more programmatic throughout Northwest Illinois Economic Development. Coincidentally, Highland is trying to adapt some unique technologies to make this more easy for schools, students, end users, business partners. And so the idea is to develop a region-wide engagement calendar. And so working with Highland, we'll see where this goes. But to get things off the ground, we're already doing a number of things that coincide with pathways to success. Internally, my board will be at the end of the year half new. So we had a number of people already that have cycled off the board, and we brought on new board members. So we'll see how that plays out. But some nice appointments recently came on, including Jim Baranski from the architectural firm. Nikki Nolan replaced Gavin Doyle from UMB Bank, which coincides with our, again, small business development program. And then we had Eagle Ridge come onto the board as well. A couple strategic things that are playing out. We are expanding our social media presence through our contractor who has gotten us onto an additional platform, and we are boosting her overall monthly impact that we have on the Meta platforms. And so that will be going into member cultivation, youth retention, promoting assets on our website, and a new asset which is going to be developed yet this spring is a new artificial intelligence tool that we are now committed to working through with SoundSafe.ai out of Galena. What this will look like. So when you go onto large corporation websites and that little thing pops up in the bottom corner, like, how can I help you? That's what Northwest Illinois Economic Development is developing. So in a nutshell, what you can do is ingest whatever documents you want. So that way, 24/7, 365, I or my staff or my contractors don't have to be online. The tool is online. So if somebody at 3 a.m. wants to find out about incentive programs or other caveats, it's the front line of defense. So that way they can get information immediately that's accurate because I ingest it. It's not going out to public platforms like ChatGPT. That's public stuff. This is a closed system. So the only thing that it knows and regurgitates is what I will be teaching it. So that will be different incentive programs that are cornerstone programs, details about census. So whatever might go to quality of life or incentive programs, it will be there to deliver that to whoever types it in 365, 24/7. If it has an issue, it will pre-generate an email to me and say, David, we got this far. The tool got this far. You take it from here and make sure that everything is correct here. So it's a customer service tool, but also something that would be a unique asset to end users that are seeking assistance. It was kind of expensive too. So I got to make sure it's good. But that will be launched by summer. And then we also talked already about opportunity zones. I'll go on to what's coming up next week. We are hosting our annual sit down with Congressman LaHood. There are other elected officials that we have invited to do similar roundtables. That is a closed meeting of Northwest Illinois Economic Development sustaining level members. So the county has been invited. Angie is going to help me introduce the congressman, given your status as a member or your appointee. That's going to be happening next week. And I can't say the full details because it's a public meeting. And by direct request of the congressman, this is a private invite only meeting. We do have our advisory committees launching at the end of next month. There'll be a new advisory committee related to bringing online new resources, and then one specific to site readiness. The sites committee is talking about our big industrial sites. Zurn Elkay's plant that is now idle in Savannah, the factory building, the Stockton project. The resources committee are going to be helping guide curriculum of our Build It, Grow It program, which is our boot camp, our summer school that we're planning for next year for young people, in addition to other things that we can maybe enable that could be impactful throughout Joe Carroll land. So these are advisory committees to myself and then the board of directors. All Northwest Illinois Economic Development members are invited to participate in one or both. And we'll be having them back to back here on the 29th of May here in the Hanover building. It should be on the calendar there. And then lastly, we're already recruiting for Manufacturing and Trades Day, which is another one of our cornerstone endeavors that we do every year. To date, that program has seen about 1,500 high schoolers go through it. And this October, we'll add, would say, another 325 to that total. We already got a couple cornerstone people lined up for the site visits, including Zurn Elkay. Tomorrow, I'll be talking with Metform. State Line Solar is already signed up to participate with the station at the CTE Academy. I heard from the director there that Signcraft is donating a couple signs, which is great. So this really involves about 36 businesses, big and small, and is a regional event involving big and small employers. No questions?
Well, I just want to compliment you because I see Northwest Illinois often on LinkedIn and on the other social media. It's really out there.
You're a busy man.
We get a lot done. So it's myself, Barbara Sue. Our contractors are Christine Malas, SoundSafe. We work with Dairyland Power on the RFIs for the big sites, responding to those inquiries. So we have a really good team. It's not just myself and Barbara Sue. I know we hear that a lot, like, it's just David. It really isn't. We have a board now of 13. Again, we have 64 members. So if I get stumped or need assistance, I have a very strong network of subject matter experts to rely on.
Any questions or concerns you have for David? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda under reports is our Economic Development Fund, that 018. And Angie has included that in our packet. Page number is, oh, good, thank you. John?
Just if you have any questions, this is the balance sheet. So this shows the assets and liabilities, what we've got in the bank, what we have as loan receivables. The second sheet is the actual revenues and expenditures, which, in the audit world, totally different than assets and liabilities. So we have had $442.22 in this period of revenue. Expenses, we have had no expenses. We haven't had any loans. We haven't had any expenses to date. So if anyone has any questions regarding what we've got in the bank here, which is right here.
Just to add, I know with the revolving loans, I've said for a couple meetings now that there are interested applicants. I still may have an application coming out of East Dubuque, and I'm also trying to follow up with the potential applicant out of Elizabeth. But right now, they have the new applications. I've hit them about 3 times in the last week, and I'm just really waiting to see if they remain interested in applying.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the financials? Hearing none, we'll go on to the Black Oak Hills Resource Console, and that's in your packet, page 35. And that was just exciting. If you go to the Black Hawk Hills website, you'll see the trail wayfinding signs. And I thought it was really interesting. If you go on there, you can really see the counts of people on the trails. It shocked me that there were 44 daily, total count of 4,188. Their maximum day, they had 248 people. The highest week, they had 599. So I guess that really tells us we better get out there and walk, and we can meet all kinds of real healthy people.
Diane, can I mention
Sure.
too that Black Hawk Hills Regional Council is working on trail systems throughout Joe Carroll Land, including the extension of the Great Illinois Grand River Trail, which is what you see down in Savannah that connects to Quad Cities. The master plan of that would extend into Joe Davies. So that trail system work actually has a lot of quality of life and tourism impact.
Yes, and you do see some coordination with the visitor bureaus. It is one of those incentives that encourages people use our outdoors amenities. Any questions for Black Hawk Hills? Seeing none?
Last night at Public Works, the acting county engineer Dylan Uppold talked about a grant opportunity, the Safe Streets for All grant. And Black Hawk Hills will be assisting him in the application process. But it looks as though we have a really, really good shot at a safety measure at the intersection of Stagecoach and Elizabeth Scales Mountain Road. That will also include a box culvert that we were already planning to replace. So at, the tune of about $500,000. So if this grant comes through, we'll be able to replace the box culvert that we were going to replace anyway. And our match for this grant would be less than what the box culvert would have cost us. So the point is, Black Hawk Hills have committed to helping us through that grant process.
Well, thank you for reporting on that. I know that with the additional staff they have, and they've been running the Safe Streets program and the sidewalks programs for quite a while. So that's great to hear. Thank you. Thanks for adding that. Citizen comments. We had some people that were listening in, so now that gives you another chance. We don't have anybody else here in the room. And it looks like everybody is muted. So our next agenda item is committee member concerns. LaDon, would you grant us a first concern? John?
Your mic's off.
I'm also on the Foreign Trade Zone Board, which does with economic development. We need economic development. It's the lifeblood of this county going forward. And I'd like to squeeze pennies, but I know we need to invest money to have development. But I was involved somewhat in this development, the presentation we had tonight, in that we need to have some hard numbers on what the opportunity is we're losing by investing this money in loans. And I'll have more to say Thursday.
Yeah, I attended the other Dunleavy Township annual meeting. One of the things I'll send you a note on this, Bill, but there's a house on Badger Road in East Dubuque that had a garage fire, and it got to the house, and it's been abandoned for a couple of years. They haven't done anything with it or other stuff, but the township is hoping that your department could take care of the necessary work to maybe get the state's attorney to move on it.
Yeah, you can just send me the information,
Yeah,
then I'll look into it.
I'll get you address, but
Okay.
it's in a residential neighborhood, So it's an attractive nuisance. I mean, you got this half burned out house with garbage and everything else laying around it. And it shouldn't happen for 2.5 years or whatever it was. Thank you.
Lynn? I've been thinking about when we talk about economic development, and I know that David's program that helps teach people and kind of mentors them in developing their business has had real positive comments. And I just want to state that it's not always the money. Sometimes it's the attitude or the paperwork, because I did hear from our city that they try to be very helpful and very positive. And so by changing some of the things in the zoning ordinance, maybe lessening some of the restrictions here or there, we'll be doing our part to make things happen easier and help people feel that this is a good business, good location.
I don't think that at all, John, by the way. I thought it was a great conversation that we need to have too. So I look forward to it respectfully. I mean, I get passionate. I apologize for that ahead of time, but it's nothing of it's negative. So I thought it was a great conversation. I saw this actually 2 months ago and I forgot to bring it last month. I sent it to David. So I wanted to make sure. This is from a Facebook post from Neff Paints. I believe they were stripping up one of our grants. I think they got around 5,000. I'm doing this from memory. They're out of Warren, and they are they need more help. They expanded. So in my opinion, that's a good measure. Is $5,000 we help? I mean, they get the credit. Let's be honest, but we help. Is $5,000 a good investment to help hire one new person in our county? Absolutely. So I'll just pass that around. So. And I'm totally fine with requiring proof because we should have that. You're absolutely right. When we did the TIFs, Angie could probably know better than everyone else. You can't get sales tax information unless there's 4 businesses. So like how many cars are sold in our town, because we only had one Elizabeth garage, that was left blank and we had to guess. And that's for all of Elizabeth. Probably for a lot of the county too. So I don't know what year it was, the 5th year, the 7th year of TIFs. We started changing our TIF deals that if we requested their sales tax, they would tell us so we could get that measurement. So in the future, if we do any kind of economic, whether it's grants or loans, hey, if we ask you for this information, we'd like to know it. I think that's a great idea, so we can help with that. So like how many times do you hire people, for example?
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here, and I have a motion on the.
Can other board members have a concern?
Oh, yes. Yes, please. Wait a minute. Let's go ahead and hear.
I guess my concern, setting the property tax issue aside on the short-term rentals, is that continuously in these development and planning meetings, I hear that economic development is important. And I'm not sure if it's ignorance or a negative view on short-term rentals, but I think that you're really missing the boat on how important these mini economies are in these short-term rentals. And I would argue that if you group all of these short-term rentals together, they're probably one of the biggest employers in this county as far as landscaping, construction, cleaners, the jobs that they provide. The only time I hear anything positive from the county in general on short-term rentals is when they get their check from the taxes that they accrue, aside from the higher property taxes that they probably pay compared to other normal, lived in homes as primary residences. So it's concerning that we are promoting economic development, or hoping for it, but we're missing that all of these short-term rentals provide that. And I think it would be helpful if all of these short-term rentals got together and provided some sort of an alliance or group so that they can really fight for themselves. So that's my view on it.
You said they pay higher taxes. They don't.
Yeah, John, they do, because they're not
depends on
considered a
what-
primary residence and they don't have that discount. And they do pay higher taxes. They pay higher taxes monthly, they pay higher taxes yearly. Like it's a compounding amount of taxes that they are. So I would love for you, John, being the finance guy, to put together an example of how much taxes a single home residence primary structure provides versus the taxes that a short-term rental does. I think it would really open your eyes if you saw this side by side instead of always negatively saying that it's not providing more taxes. In addition to the taxes they're paying people to work, and those people are also paying taxes on the different activities that they have to do for those homes. So it's compounding, and you're just looking at it face value. And I don't think you're really seeing the value that these mini economies provide when we're not bringing any other businesses to this county. And I would love to see how many people these short-term rentals employ. That'd be a good statistic too.
Thank you, Daisha. Anyone else that has comment to make? Hearing none, it looked like we had a motion on the floor from John Schultz. It's been moved by John Schultz, seconded by John Lang to adjourn the meeting until our May date. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same side. Motion carries. Thank you.
Time is 7:55.